Let's go. Episode number 82, Beyond Jiu Jitsu podcast. My name's Adam Childs. Sitting across from
Kieren Lefebvre, blue belt under Adam Childs.
You just brought that energy way down. Way down.
Adam Childs.
My name's Kieren Lefebvre. With one stripe though. Wait, do you have a stripe?
No, bro.
Fuck. No stripe.
Zero stripe. Donuts. Yeah, so today's episode is for our white belt family, our white belt fam. This is the top.
You're still
5.
a white belt at heart, Kieren.
At heart. Oh, on the podcast artwork, I am.
You are.
I have recently checked our Patreon ever since, I think it was episode 77 where we mentioned the artwork again for the 1 millionth time. And we said, nah, it's the Patreons that decide. Almost unanimously, all the Patreons have banded together and say that the artwork needs to change. So I'm going to have to look at changing that. The tribe has spoken. I'll put out a poll on Patreon.
I still don't like it.
Yeah, well, that's okay. If you want to influence this poll, join our Patreon. But a poll will be going up when this episode airs, so I will put that up on Patreon.
Can we? Okay, let me throw this out to the Patreons. Would you prefer the artwork to change, but instead of the belt changing to a blue belt, we just put a stripe on it? What about that?
I've got an idea. This is just occurred to me. Let's do 2 polls. We'll do one open to the community, maybe on Instagram, and then we'll have one on YouTube, and then we'll have one on Patreon. And then the Patreon results will account for like 60% of the total poll results, and the rest will come from all the other sources, just in case Patreon's split.
We'll get that mathematician statistics genius we've got to run all the data.
Yeah, we'll run all the data. We'll balance it all out, have different weight to different votes on different platforms.
We'll skew the results so the answer's still a no.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, white belt friends, today we are talking about 5 white belt or 5 new student mistakes. So maybe not, that by default means you're a white belt, but I'm more talking about some of those, you're still in your first weeks, months of jiu-jitsu. What are some 5 mistakes that you make and you should not be doing?
Yeah, I think this episode is designed to like fast track it a little bit, because these are things that you can pretty much fix as soon as they're being brought to your attention.
That's right. So these aren't things that, not mistakes from a technique point of view, because that can take time and repetition and hours on the mats. These are things that, okay, maybe it's not as easy to say overnight, but to some degree overnight. They're just sort of things that you might not realize until someone said, bro, you do this. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you still tick all these 5 boxes, Kieren.
Definitely. First one, I don't just tick number 1, I smash number 1. I fucking obliterate the number 1 point. And so number 1 point is going too hard.
Yeah.
Going hard in the paint, yo.
Yeah. What?
I don't know. Anyway.
I think I've mentioned before, we've got one guy in the gym, Aaron, and he teaches the kids class for me, and he's been with me for a long time. But he's also from a different part of the country that I'm from. And he's got the wackest sayings.
Yeah, man.
Sometimes he just says.
He's got some bogan-ass sayings.
Yeah, he's kind of like, my dad says weird sayings, but I'm used to them because he's my dad. But, Aaron will say something and he'll say something like you just said, but you just said that and had no idea. You were just like, I don't know, man, I'm just saying useless stuff. Yeah. But Aaron will be like, I don't know. Oh, bro, like a cherry brown apple with a porcupine. And you'll be like, what? And he'll be like, yeah, haven't you heard that before? You'll be like, I have no idea what you just said. But for him, it's just this legit saying that is,
Yeah, that's weird.
Straight to the paint. What'd you say? Something like that.
Hard in the paint.
Hard in the paint.
You go hard in the paint. That means you go hard.
Yeah, well, I got there. I got there on my own.
Full send?
Full send.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we're on board. Yeah, okay, so going too hard. What do we mean by that?
So what I mean by going too hard is I don't mean as in, trying with 100%. I mean, give it your all. But I mean going too hard as in all brand new white belts are usually way too tense all the time. They're flexing, contracting their muscles the entire time. And it is absolutely exhausting. Try to just tense, like try to just stay tense for 2 minutes. Man, it's very, very hard to contract. Just contracting your muscles, especially your legs, because they're the, you know, I always get confused. Is it your quads or your glutes that are the bigger muscle?
Glutes.
Your glutes, right? I believe the glutes are the biggest muscle in the human body, right?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
Anyway, maybe I'm Joe Rogan.
Let's just say it is.
Yeah, let's just say it is. You know, it takes a huge amount of energy to contract such huge amounts of mass, and beginners tend to do that, and that's why they often gas out. Right? In conjunction with that going too hard, it also can bleed into things like tapping too late or not applying a submission correctly, in the sense that you don't do it in a controlled manner. Like you don't understand the mechanics of an armbar, or you might understand the mechanics, but you haven't spent enough time there to understand the amount of force required to literally break someone's arm, and maybe you break someone's arm, right? So going in, beginners in the beginning, and being super tense and thinking that it is this I'm going to murder you situation is such a recipe for injury. And you see it all the time. Beginners trying, like often they hurt themselves, you know? So sometimes, depending on the individual, I'll have someone not roll for X amount of classes because it's not that they're going to get hurt from my other existing students. I have none of those sorts of students. We don't have that culture in the gym of, oh, it's a new guy, beat up the new guy, fresh meat, blah, 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 you know? It's usually they hurt themselves. So they might even be a relatively fit individual, but doing a closed chain movement like, you know, a deadlift or a squat where everything is symmetrical and locked in place is very different to trying to, you know, or let's say a bench press, right? You know, very different doing a bench press than it is trying to push someone off you who their weight is not symmetrical on each of your hands, and you're not lying flat, you're turned on your side, and people hurt their own back or their own shoulder because they're going too hard in the beginning, and they're not respecting how physically demanding the sport is and how their body is not used to that yet. Like you wouldn't be like pick up surfing and be like, it's 20 foot, I'm paddling out, right? You know?
Fuck no.
You know, you've got to
start in the baby pool.
But yeah, kind of baby steps, so to speak.
And a good example of when you're having someone, this term, if you haven't heard of it, is called spazzy white belt. It's like a buzz phrase in jiu-jitsu. It's a meme at this stage. And a good example of knowing if you're rolling with a spazzy white belt is I tend to get more like knocks and headbutts and elbows into the face and like just random shit like that when someone's spazzing out. Like I roll hard with, belt people that I'm like my level, like blue belts and up and even like more experienced white belts. And I don't get as knocks and bumps and like headbutts and shit and knocked in the mouth and stuff like that, even though we're going a lot harder. But when you have that spazzy white belt for whatever reason, because they just are so erratic, you always get like a headbutt or something. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, because when it's someone a bit more experienced, you have that level of trust, like that. Maybe trust is, trust is the right word, but you don't even have to have actual trust for the person. You just trust in their overall jiu-jitsu that they move the appropriate way, right? Think about incoming Formula One analogy, right? Like Formula One drive, like, man, everything happens so quick and at such high speeds, like imagine at the start of a race and you're not on the front of the grid, you're maybe in the middle somewhere. When the lights go out, you just hit the accelerator. You don't wait for the person in front of you to take off. Otherwise, you'll be miles behind. And that's why you see sometimes if the guy in front, doesn't take off as quickly as he should because he got wheel spin or there was a problem with the car, the guy behind just crashes straight into the back of him, you know, because it all happens too fast. The same as, man, the speed that they brake going into corners would be what the average person would consider you brake checking the person behind you. But the person in front has faith that the person behind is, you know, they've got brake markers, right? At this 100-meter mark, we hit the brakes. The person behind is going to brake unless something mechanically goes wrong, you know? So you can drive in a way because, you know, you're expecting this person to drive at a similar skill level. So it allows you to do things that you couldn't do if it was an amateur driver in the other car. And jiu-jitsu is the same, right? I completely agree. It's definitely when you're rolling with the white belts who go too hard, that's when you get smashed in the face and all this stuff, because even if they're not spazzing, they're just, I don't know, the control and the understanding isn't there yet.
Yeah, the control of their own body. And like I had a friend of mine who has like done a couple like jiu-jitsu sessions here and there over the years, but he basically is brand new white belt. He came for an open mat to try out, and we were rolling. And the amount of times he accidentally just through his like sort of erratic movement just headbutted me or like just smashed me in the mouth or like, you know, just hit me randomly. And it happens with you know, it's not isolated event to him, but it happens in so many cases. And it's something that I've noticed is really funny. And then if they hit you too hard, like they really headbutt you in the nose or something, it pisses you off and you got to you got to stop them.
Yeah.
I'm joking. Yeah, it's quite funny. So yeah, going too hard is definitely a risk for injury, I'd say.
Yeah. So the next one though, mistake for maybe this isn't white belt, but mistake for people starting out in the sport. And I don't want to, you could kind of wrap these two with going too hard as well, because I don't want to contradict what I just said, but a mistake / misunderstanding I see is people not understanding the sport that they're about to participate in. So I know I said, you know, going too hard is a mistake, and it is, but also a mistake I see beginners do is, I don't know, tapping from the tiniest, you know, or tapping or complaining or saying, oh, you know, he was, but like he had his shoulder on my face.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, bro. You know, it's like a surfer being like, but I got wet. You know, so not understanding that you are participating in a full contact combat sport, right? There will be shoulders pressing into your face, arms and legs and parts of your body get bent and twisted the wrong way. The same way that if you signed up for boxing, you're going to get punched in the face, punched in the ribs. That's part of the sport. So I'm not saying that means that you do need to go, well, it's an MMA fight and let's go 100% and smash him. He's going to smash me. It's a war. No. So still rule number one or mistake number one still exists of going too hard. I guess mistake number two would be, you could classify it better as saying a misunderstanding. You need to realize that you are participating in a full contact combat sport. That doesn't mean, depending on your gym, maybe day one you're thrown in with the lions, but it doesn't mean you're going to have to be fighting for your life from day one. You can learn it in a very safe, controlled manner. But I really get frustrated when people, you know, have someone say to me like, oh, so you just muscle it. Like, well, you muscle it with you use strength and explosion with a huge amount of technique as well. Like technique. It's a physical sport, you know. It's like, you know, complaining that a tennis player's serve was whatever.
Oh, they muscled that serve.
200. Oh, yeah, man. He aced me that 200-kilometer-an-hour serve because he just muscled it.
Yeah.
But well, yeah, there was a huge amount of muscle behind that serve and a crazy amount of technique too, you know. So just understanding that the sport that you're about to participate in. And I get that maybe for some people that understanding won't come until you get a bit of time in the sport, you know. Anyone's welcome to try it. Some people might try it, and once they physically feel what the sport's like, they might go, well, it's not for me. And that's fine. It's not for everyone, you know. You can't fully understand it until you experience it. So that's fine. Yeah, don't be one of those, you know, it's a big mistake to try to continue to train jiu-jitsu without coming to that realization, you know, and so get on board with that sooner rather than later. Otherwise, your progression will stop maybe at a 1-stripe white belt. You know, you can still train jiu-jitsu for a bit without going down that road, but it's kind of like the celebrity jiu-jitsu stuff that we talked about ages ago, where those celebrities, for those who don't know, it's Higan Machado, I think, has like a celebrity jiu-jitsu program that's designed for celebrities, mainly actors, who, because of their work, kind of can't afford to get injured, or especially on their face, have injuries and things like that. So cool, I'm all for that, but then sweet, you're not earning X belt or Y belt if you're not actually doing the sport.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Totally.
How can you be expected to make it up into the next, you know, tier belt if you don't actually do it?
You can't.
You're not going to get to play A-grade football. You're never going to progress from B-grade to A-grade if you never actually step on the pitch, are you?
No, absolutely not. And one thing that has come to mind when you were talking about, like, you know, people complaining about shoulder pressure and things like that, it's kind of like get comfortable being uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is never comfortable, so I prefer like to change that saying a little bit to get accustomed or get used to being uncomfortable. There's going to be moments in jiu-jitsu where it fucking sucks. Like, you're on the bottom, you're pinned down, you can't move, you can't breathe. Like, someone's shoulders in your neck or in your face, or like, you know, they're digging for a rear naked choke and they're digging their bloody knuckle into your neck. That sucks. But that's the sport, bro.
Yeah. You're making me think of when, getting accustomed or used to it's the way to think about it. So we did, let me do a quick scroll to find what episode it was. Episode 43 was the celebrity BJJ belts.
Wow, we're up to 82. That's crazy.
Fuck. Yeah, so I'm trying to find. we did an episode a while back about cold showers. Episode 32, recovery tactics for BJJ, cold showers. And Kieren and I had both done a month of taking only cold showers together, of course.
Yes.
Right. But it was something Kieren had done previously, having lived in Sweden and stuff, but it was new to me, you know, Wim Hof stuff, all that sort of thing. Anyway, we did cold showers for a month. And I remember there was a bit in that episode where I said, you know, they suck, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no, like, you know, you get used to it. And essentially my point was, yeah, you get used to the suck.
Yes.
Like, they never suck less.
Yes.
You just get used to the fact that it sucks.
Yeah.
But it's not like you get to a point where the cold isn't cold. It's always cold. I don't know if biologically you can all of a sudden be, you know, used to the cold water feels warm. I don't know if that can happen. I don't know. I ain't no fucking doctor. I ain't no scientist. But, you know, it wasn't that they don't suck. They always suck. Every single cold shower sucks.
Yeah.
After it feels good, you know, and to some degrees during a cold shower, sometimes it can feel good. You know, I think I said on that episode, in the 1 month, I had 1 or 2 cold showers where I got in the water and was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But maybe it was hotter that day. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But you get used to the suck. And it's kind of like you said, you don't get comfortable being uncomfortable. You just get
used to it,
accustomed to that. This discomfort is just part of it.
And the longer you train jiu-jitsu, you will become the cold water and you will impose that suck onto someone else.
Yeah.
And that's what it's fun.
But I think that's everything. You know, I get, you know, the point I'm trying to make with the understanding what sport you're participating in is people complain about their fingers or whatever. There's always, and you're doing a physical sport, there'll be wear and tear. Anyone listening who plays guitar would know that if you go for a bit of time without playing guitar and then you go back to playing the guitar, the tips of your fingers will be sore from holding the strings down. You're talking about playing guitar and you can have sore fingers. Like, you know, you pick up surfing, you might get a bit of a board rash on your chest, right? Or, man, you think these guys who ride bikes, like cyclists, who do it for sport or for fitness, man, they get sore asses sitting on those seats. They might have whatever, like there's whatever sport you're participating in, you're going to have some wear and tear on your body. Like I said, you could be playing guitar and you'll have sore fingers.
Exactly.
So it's just a big mistake or misunderstanding.
To not understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool if you're not going to fully understand it until you do it, of course, and maybe then you decide it's not for you, but you can't expect someone to understand what the discomfort feels like and be cool with it before experiencing it. And then if you decide it's not for you, cool, but it's not going to get easier or better. Well, no, easier it does because you just get used to the suck. And the suck just becomes normal. And like you said, you get to a point where you're not doing any of the sucking. You're just like pouring the cold water on other people.
Yeah, baby.
And you're just saying, you suck it.
Just breathe, bro.
Yeah.
Has it ever, does this still happen to you? Probably not because of your, because of where you're at in your jiu-jitsu.
It's my super awesome skill.
Yeah, because you're mad skilled.
I only roll with white belts.
Yeah, true. So if you ever, do you get in positions where, you've had that suck imposed on you. You've been getting smashed and you reach a point in your mind where it's not like you start to panic, but a switch goes off and you're like, nah, fuck this. I don't want to be here anymore. I want out.
Yeah.
And then it becomes not a panic, but like the urgency, not because you're about to be subbed, but just because, nah, fuck this. I don't want to have this person's will imposed on me any longer.
I don't know if urgency is the feeling I feel in those moments. I think it's a little, for me
Anger?
Personally, it's a little bit of rage, I feel. Not rage as in I'm going to lose composure.
Yes.
I've never,
of course,
in my career of jiu-jitsu, lost composure as in that I felt the need to hit someone or say something. Oh, no, there's times I've told people that they're being a dick. But anyway.
I haven't experienced that.
I usually say it behind your back.
Fair.
But yeah, it's almost like a little bit of rage, so I don't know if I feel urgent, but I would be like, sometimes if I'm in that bad position, exactly.
Yeah.
In my mind is pretty much that phrase. I'm like, get the fuck off me, piece of fuck off.
Yeah.
And then when I get out, I don't know. Sometimes I'll then get out and I'll be like, I'm going to murder you.
Yes.
Or sometimes I get out and have that feeling of I'm defeated and I got out and I'm like, I got out, but like I'm done. Like I want to kind of curl up in the fetal position and cry a little bit.
It's very frustrating whenever that sort of, it doesn't happen every time. Sometimes I just cop it, but whenever that sort of rage, if you will, or that like urgency, using my word there, turns on when I'm against a higher belt. Like I'm stuck in a really shit position from a black belt.
I've felt it, you against me. Like I've felt you have that
switch,
switch of really wanting to get out.
Yeah. And it sucks because sometimes no matter how much you want it, you do not have the skill set or the ability to make it happen.
Yeah.
That being in that position, that vulnerability, that almost defenselessness, that is where jiu-jitsu is at. It's where jiu-jitsu is at though. Like it's where you fucking make the most mental progress.
Yeah, for sure. Big time.
Yeah. And I just had to put that out there.
Yeah,
anyway.
Race to suck. All right. Number 3 is, we've spoken about this multiple times just throughout the podcast history, but a big mistake that beginners make is just having zero base. What I mean by zero base is I don't mean you have to be, some people you train with, they wrestled in school and they have a crazy good base. I don't mean like that. I just find it mind-boggling how for a lot of beginners, it's not natural just to not fall over. I'll be like, bro, I didn't even sweep you. I just grabbed your collar and you fell over.
Yeah, dude.
don't get me wrong. If you're a brand new white belt, I'm going to sweep you. I'd like to think so. I'm going to if I sweep you with a technique and I controlled your base or your ability to post and knocked you over, cool. But so many times, man, they'll have like almost all 4 of their limbs free and you just like push them in a direction or something and they just fall over. And you're like, but why didn't you step?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you put a hand out? If you were standing up and I bumped into you, like walking through the supermarket and we accidentally bumped shoulders. So you just go, oh, I'm going down.
Oh, timber.
Like, just step. Yeah, that's a very big mistake.
That's so funny.
Of course, not everyone does it, but as a whole, I see way too many brand new beginners.
Do you remember when I had this problem when I was falling over all the time? You're like, what the fuck, dude? Just
Did I?
Yeah. It was, I went through a phase where my base was just dog shit and I was conceding sweeps. I was just falling over. And you're like, you're not fighting. Like, where's your base? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like I'm not even holding that hand. Like post.
Yeah.
And
it's so funny.
Someone else, Marina had this as well a while back. So Marina's a white belt and quite like naturally gifted. Like she's got a lot of that fight in her, that sometimes girls don't have in jiu-jitsu. So Marina comes, she trains hard. Her partner Anthony trains as well. They're both like I actually really like Anthony and Marina. They're two of my favorite students. Kieren, move over. Come on in, Anthony Marina. You're on the podcast.
I would like to replace Kieren now.
And it can make a huge difference. So she was going through this phase a little bit. It wasn't like a big glaring thing, but I had a roll with her one day and I said, Marina, man, like you're just falling over. Like put your hand, like just stay on top. If I'm not controlling your sleeve or your leg and I'm not sweeping you from a technical point, like I'm sometimes just pushing you to get a reaction, but you're just collapsing onto your butt. Stay on top. And then the next day we rolled and it was like, night and day. The difficulty level to sweep her just went up like 100%. It wasn't just like, oh, she's a little harder to sweep now. It was just like, man, you're so much, your base is like overnight better. And like we said at the start, some of these things you can implement overnight. Of course, for some people, it's going to take longer for it to become autonomous. For Marina, she was able to instantly make that rather autonomous, but it can make a huge difference. I have another student, Dave. He's a blue belt and still has a bit of this problem. It's way better now. But I said to him, I was like, Dave, your top pressure's really good. You're kind of like really heavy and solid, like a concrete statue or something. Like your base is good, but as soon as you start tipping, you don't even try to catch yourself. Like you're like a solid statue that once gravity takes over, you're gone. I was like, no, you need to be a statue, but that is a living statue. Like if you're falling, I need you to put a hand out or a foot out, catch yourself, stay on top. And it makes a big difference. So that is a huge mistake that I see way too many beginners make. And when I get a brand new student who doesn't make that mistake, I'll often go as far as to compliment them as well. Say, man, you'd be surprised how well you're doing. Just the fact that you do this and this, you've got that intuitive desire to stay on top, and you've got that natural sort of base where you don't just fall over. When you're falling, you catch yourself, and for you, it's probably feeling obvious, but a lot of people, it's not.
Yeah.
Kieren. So but it makes a big difference. It really does. It's a big mistake that you can get rid of rather quickly. Like I said, some people will be able to implement that change overnight as soon as they're aware of it, and some wouldn't. But there's no better way to think about it other than, if you're walking down the street and you trip, you don't just sometimes you fall on your face, but it's usually against your best efforts, right? Like when you trip on a curb or like a little crack in the sidewalk or something.
You step.
Yeah, you usually catch yourself. And if you ever do fall all the way down, I can pretty much promise you it was probably against your best efforts to stay standing.
Exactly.
Right?
And
you don't just go, shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as well, piggybacking off that, knowing where to put your weight this is not something that you could probably fix overnight, but it's a very common issue that I'm experiencing lately with white belts. And a prime example was last night, either committing your weight too far forward or too far backward. So not knowing where to put your base and getting easily reversed. Like, for example, I was rolling with the white belt.
Oh, like if you were side control top or something.
Exactly.
Like
That's exactly what happened. Side control, he was on top, and it was the most easy reversal we've ever done. Literally just had to roll because they were like just committed way too far forward.
Just like hot dog rolled it.
Yeah, off we went. He was like, no. And he's literally like, fuck, what the hell? Because he's like trying so hard, holding so hard. He's so excited that he got there, like pushing all of his weight way too far forward is the easiest reversal.
Yeah.
And I think, fine tuning that will come with
you
time.
have to be, dynamic about being heavy. I've used this analogy a lot in the gym, but it falls mostly on deaf ears. The fact that we're in the city of Sydney, it would probably be a more relevant analogy for people who live in the country. But I often use the analogy of riding a horse. For people who have ridden a horse before, they'll instantly know what I'm trying to say. You know, if you just sit on a horse rigid, like as the horse moves, like you'll get bounced off it. You'll literally go and you'll get bounced and thrown off the horse, right? If you're like a rigid heavy weight. Like it's called riding a horse because you literally have to ride it. You need to move up and down with it. Look at like rodeo riders, you know, like bull riders and stuff like that. They don't just sit on the bull and hold on. It's not as simple as that. Like they're moving their hips and, you know, moving with the bull to almost, well, I don't know any other word to use than ride it. Or look at bull riders on those mechanical bulls. And you see all those fail clips when someone just sits on it and they're rigid, they just get whoom, and they get thrown. And then you see the people who can stay on it.
Yeah.
They're moving
with it. Yeah.
Man, like pocket-toe bitches. Yeah. Like anything dynamic. Could say the same about a surfer. Like if you caught a wave, stood up on your board and then went, now I'll stand stiff, you're going to fall off very, very, like you need to dynamically move with the wave because it's moving as well. Right? Like
absolutely.
And yeah, so that no base thing, of course, having a really good base and that ability to ride comes with time, right? That cheeky ass smile because I said the word ride, right?
I'm always smiling, bro.
But yeah, that at least, you know, if you trip, stick a hand out, stick a foot out. Don't just fall on your face.
Yeah.
Right? Try fix that one. It's a big mistake. And as I mentioned, when people come in and they're brand new and they don't make that mistake, it's so common that I'll say to them, man, you're doing really, you'd be surprised that, you know, how you know, not a step ahead, but, you know, you're coming from a really good place because you already do this.
Awesome.
Bam. Number 4, right, is, which order do I want to do this? I'll do this one first. Overextending your arms / bench pressing out of side control or mount. So this one is, maybe you can fix it overnight, but takes a little bit more time, because you're having to unlearn something that is instinctual. A lot of the self-defense moves when you take someone down and you armbar them from mount, it's because instinctually you try to push someone off you. I mean, that's why that self-defense movement exists. And so beginners always do it, right? Always, always, always do it. Okay, so if in doubt, keep your elbows tucked in. I was once told that you never want to have your your neck, armpits, or hips controlled. But that armpits really like thought about. So think if your arms are open and you're open for arm drags and arm bars and whatever. So if in doubt, pretend you've got like super embarrassing sweaty pits. Like keep your arms tucked in.
T-Rex arms.
T-Rex arms,
yes.
Right? That's maybe a better one because
yeah.
sweaty pits is gross. So Kieren, buy some deodorant.
Yeah, I got mad sweaty pits, bro.
Yeah, T-Rex arms. Yeah, beginners overextend their arms all the time. And of course, you're going to watch a professional fight or watch your teammates fight and be like, but that dude doesn't have T-Rex arms. Yeah, because you can't just permanently have T-Rex arms. You are extending to reach for things and pull things and push things. But as a whole, beginners just overextend their arms all the time.
They just leave them out there dangling in the wind.
Yeah, it'd be similar to, people who are very new to striking always leave their guard down, as in always let their hands drop, right? So they're open to be hit. It's just one of those things that, you watch a professional boxer, but he dropped his hands. Yeah, but he's a professional boxer. Like he knows what's up. You don't, so keep your hands up. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
That overextending of your arms. And you often do walk a fine line. Even at the professional level, you'll be extending your arm, and you're both professional fighters. So I know that if I extend too far, he'll take that arm. He knows that I know that he'll take the arm, so there's that physical chess game going on, or that trying to walk that line, escaping mount. You do an elbow escape where you're trying to walk that line of the more I turn, the easier it is to re-guard, but the more I turn, the easier it is for you to take my back.
Yeah.
And you're trying to walk that line, and arm extension is the same thing in a lot of positions, but as a beginner, it's better to start all the way on the other end of not extending your arms and then work towards that line of extension than the other way around.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Way better to start from, well, my arms are always in and I never get arm barred, but I also never escape or can frame when I need to frame, and start extending your frame. And then you'll get to a point where you start extending it too much, getting arm barred, and you go, oh, wait, the line was back there, back it down. That's way better than being like, I always extend my arms. I get arm barred all the time. I got arm barred a little less, a little less, a little less, a little less. Oh, now I've got no frame.
Yeah. You have to capitalize. It almost requires you to be punished over and over and over again for that mistake.
Yeah, and that hurts.
Yeah.
Arm bars hurt.
You must be punished.
My crappy elbow, post-surgery elbow messing with me.
Coming from someone post-surgery elbow. Yeah, like even last night I was rolling with a white belt down in my close guard. They left their arm out. So easiest arm bar. Within like 10 seconds. Straight in close guard, left their arm bar. Like
straight up.
Dangling in the wind.
Yeah, it's a massive mistake that white belts always make. Also a mistake that you can easily understand why, because it's just very instinctual. A lot of jiu-jitsu is not instinctual. Think about playing guard as a whole is not, it's not natural for 99.9% of people who train jiu-jitsu, who start jiu-jitsu, I should say. You get to a point where it's second nature.
Yeah.
So you can see how people get to that arm extension mistake. So try make a mental note of it. Keep your arms in, T-Rex arms.
Awesome.
And the last one is probably the most well-documented beginner mistake, probably in a lot of forms of exercise, but it would be not breathing. And you could say not breathing correctly, but even just not breathing.
It's holding your breath.
People hold their breath.
Yeah.
And this one takes a little more to untrain, or to train yourself to breathe correctly, I should say. Because when you're in, moments of exertion, you often hold your breath. When you're distracted, you hold your breath. I think we spoke briefly about Wim Hof and some breathing on an episode not that long ago.
Episode 80.
80, was it?
Q&A, yeah.
And you would even mention something along the lines of people, when they're super engaged and focused in a work task, will hold their breath. I went through this as a white belt, and I remember I went through a period of time where I just permanently just set, like every roll, I was just talking to myself, breathe, breathe, breathe. I used to tell people who were coaching for me at fights, bro, if you could just yell out and remind me to breathe, that'd be tops. Right? And I used to just get people
That's awesome.
to tell me to breathe, because forget, right? You forget, or you get distracted. It's not natural for you yet to breathe at the correct times. It sounds easier than it is, I guess.
Aaron does that a lot. That's a lot of his advice when he's like, coaching a roll in front of him. He just throws out, breathe, don't forget to breathe, stop holding your breath, breathe. He's really aware of that, Aaron, Pebble Belt at the gym. Yeah,
it's, it definitely, there's some people who hold their breath and can do with here and that.
And it's funny, on piggybacking off the holding your breath, it becomes a really, really obvious telegraph, particularly if someone's like on the bottom, they're about to go for a big explosive escape. And they go,
yeah.
You're like, I know what's coming. I just dropped my base. Yeah. Good luck.
They pull out the smelling salt. Yeah,
it's super obvious. And then you've just completely neutralized their element of surprise.
And they've still exerted themselves massively.
Exactly. And you've totally shut it down easily.
Yeah. Think how much a failed lift costs.
Oh,
like when you go for a 1 rep max deadlift or something and you fail. Oh. Man, you like the chance of you hitting it the second rep, man, like that doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
It does sometimes, you see it in the Olympics, right? Obviously, but these are professional lifters. They might fail a lift and then come back and get it the second rep, or in strongman. But man, at most of the time, if you fail the first one,
you're fucked.
You're fucked.
Yeah, right? It's really funny. I used to do the same thing. when I was, quite new in the jiu-jitsu journey. So I made a point of trying to fool my opponent doing the opposite. So whenever I was about to go for a big explosive movement, I would slow down my breathing and just breathe like as in tell them, oh, I'm just taking a break.
Oh, I'm just chilling.
I'm just resting. Like, so I'd go, and then I was go, I don't think it works. So I don't really do it anymore, but it was a little like psychological game I used to try and play back in the days.
I like playing. I got quite a few little psychological like things I like to do in my roles, and I think they can go a long way. That's, very nuanced in the sense that they're not necessarily game changing, but sometimes just adding, if that makes said technique 1% more effective, sometimes 1% is the, difference between something working and not.
I've got one. I've got one that I do all the time.
Got to share now.
So whenever I've got a rear naked choke and it's not quite on, but I'm like just sinking it in, or like someone's fighting a submission like that and my head's right next to their head, I push my face in as close as I can to theirs.
Lick them.
And lick their ears. No. And then I just like really slow down my breathing and show to them, as I'm squeezing as hard as I can, and show them I can do this all day, baby.
Yeah.
Like I just slow it down. Like I'm relaxed. You're fighting. I'm chill. This can happen all day. Just tap, bro. Like that's like a psychological game. I get as close as I can to their face and just breathe in their ear, like real slow, like this is easy, bro.
Yeah.
Even though I'm like,
just like start talking to yourself as well. Be like, fuck, that's right. I got to buy milk.
Just like your shopping list in their fucking ear, bro.
That'd be so good. Yeah, but that's for me, it was literally just, I made a mental note to just say the word breathe over and over and over in my head while I would roll until it become normal. And it's also the reason that's a mistake beginners make as well is because they're not yet experienced enough to know which of the moments you can rest and which of the moments you can't. So this kind of ties in with the going too hard mistake, which is just not understanding. I think I've given a similar analogy before. Like if it's a 5 kilometer race, you can't sprint for 5 kilometers. Also, if you jog for 5 kilometers, you'll lose, right? In most competitive running, like the start of the race, people usually sprint a bit further because they want good track position or whatever, and then you slow it down. So there's moments of it, the speed fluctuates through the race. And so you could think of the jogging aspect of that 5 kilometer race as when you're resting, and jiu-jitsu is the same. So even when you're resting, you're still active. You can never just 100% rest. Beginners don't yet they don't know how to pace themselves, as in, I don't mean just pace yourself as in, oh, this is the pace I can do for 5 minutes. No, pace yourself as in, you need to have some reserves of, if you can go at a 8 out of 10 for 5 minutes, right? Well, then your pace, your resting should probably be a 6 out of 10, because there's moments you're going to need to bump it up to a 12 out of 10, but so you need that wiggle room. You need a pace that you can then, have spikes in it as well. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And beginners don't quite get that yet, that they need to maintain a pace that allows for moments of spiking.
The best feeling is when you're rolling with your opponent and your base pace is like 3 points above theirs.
It's 3 point, or your base pace is like 3 points above their spiking pace.
That's the best.
And you're like,
all day, baby.
Yeah, nothing. Nothing, you shit.
Oh man, I'm so arrogant.
Yeah,
but no, that's a really good analogy. And I think the more jiu-jitsu you do, and this is something I'm going through at the moment, is one thing that you always say is like, you can't rest there, bro. Like you can't.
Yeah, there's some positions
you just can't rest there. I get in bad habits.
It's got to be a 20 out of 10 sometimes.
Yes, I've been developing these bad habits of chilling in positions that I cannot rest in. And the prime example is when you're trying to escape a position. It's always going to be hard, but then you get to like an intermediate position and then you chill because you think, I've escaped.
Because you did a bunch of you did the harder part of the work.
And then you let it go in the last 10%, and then you're back to where you were and you're like, fuck dude, why?
Yeah,
you can't rest there. That's something that is playing in my mind.
It's almost another version of those fail videos of the don't celebrate too early.
Oh,
videos
those are so
where the
good.
guy's finishing a triathlon, celebrating 50 meters from the end, and another dude just blasts past him. It's kind of like that.
I love those videos. Those videos are fucking great.
Yeah, it's a bit of a serves you right, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. That's a valuable lesson that guy learned. Is it's not over till it's over.
Yeah, that's right. You know what is over?
This podcast.
So, yeah, quick summary. Right. 5 white belt beginner mistakes. Going too hard, right? Recipe for injury. That also to contradict that, understand the misunderstanding of the sport you're about to participate in. Right? It is a full contact combat sport. Can be done safely. I'm not saying it's a fight every time you turn up to training.
Embrace the suck.
But, you know, you're going to have wear and tear, but good wear and tear, right? You're going to wear and tear when you play guitar, right? So going too hard, you know, understand the sport you're participating in. No base. Whoa, that's a bad one. Don't trip and fall on your face. Catch yourself. Don't overextend your arms. Get some little T-Rex arms going and breathe, baby. Don't forget to breathe.
Just breathe.
Yep, just breathe.